domestic violence and women has overtaken Aboriginal.
Get this right. Okay, so there have been apparently several Sydney Swans players who have been involved in an incident of alleged sexual assault.
At the Pullman Hotel in Melbourne East this morning, plainclothes detectives on the scent of a Swans scandal.
We can confirm that several players were involved in an alleged incident last night in Melbourne.
7 News understands up to 5 players were in a room celebrating the team's thumping victory over Essendon last night.
The Sydney Swans remember what it's like to win at the MCG.
With claims one of the women was sexually assaulted.
We're extremely shocked and disappointed that this has taken place and that the players have found themselves in this situation.
Potentially harmful content for boys and men. I'll be honest, that like the human it maybe felt seen, maybe felt good, and that's what the matter to be praised on. And
boys will be boys comment, excusatory language for male behaviour. I think it's, you may call it really small and unintentional, but this type of stuff is harmful. We got men killing women and children on a weekly basis here in Australia, and this is a fucking issue.
Story about him and then snorting cocaine and drinking alcohol, it's probably not going to end well, and it didn't end well. Carr got convicted of rape and will probably go to jail, and the woman has been raped.
The commentary that I personally have seen is these men worrying about what this means for the season. What does this mean for the Sydney Swans this season?
Do you know that domestic violence takes up about 75% of police officers' time now? Yeah. And that's all they're dealing with. And the police have had a gutful of it.
80 to 85% of our police are actually tied up on domestic violence. And that's not good enough. I think that we need a full overview of the child support system, the family law courts, and we need to find the answers.
We're talking about sex robots that could work to stop domestic violence and sexual assault.
Sex robots are going to change the field even more than it already has been. There's obviously the dark side, where it's going to make people even less excited to go out in the prospect of having to date and interact with another human. But on the flip side, there is the possibility that it actually reduces sexual assault.
Someone going out there and claiming domestic violence because they're told, I don't like the colour of your dress that you're wearing. They're making frivolous complaints, and it's tying up our court system. We have especially men who are subjects of domestic violence themselves.
Now you have sex robots, and that might actually be a solution to some of the sexual assault that we're...
Good evening. The Sydney Swans have admitted they changed the script of a pre-game tribute to victims of the Bondi terror attack, removing references to the Jewish community.
Is this a blowback? And this story broke last night, and look, I was kind of making assumptions about it just from the start, but I've had a bit of a review over it, and I just want to talk about in theme, and particularly about why and where this is going, because I've always looked at the AFL as a microcosm of both government and just the establishment in general. And as Dr. Richard Day said in 1969, who was a Rockefeller insider that worked for Planned Parenthood, and you can read his whole statement online, Dr. Richard Day's, he spoke about so many different things, especially about dividing the sexes, about the whole transgender thing, how we're going to make boys and girls the same. He spoke about all these different cultural things that he knew about from being a Rockefeller insider, but he said that sport would be used as a tool for social engineering or social conditioning. Now, the AFL, I don't need to explain this again, is absolutely that. And I've noticed, because I follow the AFL news media and I follow the AFL, as well as having a pulse on what's happening with the media and stuff, and seeing how cultural shifts start to happen and how they're engineered. So people would know, even if you're looking at some of the mainstream media stories, there's been massively within the last couple of months, it's been a theme for a while, but especially in the last couple of months, they're reporting on every one of these domestic violence cases in which it's always a man that kills a woman. Now, of course, I'm not in support of murder and rape and domestic violence and stuff like that, but there's an eagerness to report this, and the question is why. Now, first, we must know that the establishment and those pushing cultural trends are doing so for nefarious means. Now, there's also divine parts of this that actually play out as part of the story, and I think these two intertwine. So, but first of all, they don't care about women. Let's just, okay? So, I just want to get that out of the way. People like thinking of what I might be saying in a bit is chauvinist and sexist, and I'm supporting rapists and stuff like that. It's not that at all. I'm just looking at what the trend is here and what actually they might be pushing. So you got to look also too that this is like very political, and it's a left-right thing. If you could see like the clips that I showed at the start, people like Mitch Brown and Abby Chatfield that are like trying to politicise this, and then you got the opposite side now of Pauline Hanson that's coming into prominence in Australia, who's been speaking out about like the rort that is domestic violence.
Do you know that domestic violence takes up about 75% of police officers' time now? Yeah. And that's all they're dealing with. And the police have had a gutful of it. Yeah. They're sick and tired of it because of the reports that they have to make. And that's why we're not dealing with real crime out there. Assistance that they have, then you have the legal funding, then you got the $5,000 that's given to women in domestic violence or breakup, then you got domestic violence holiday leave, in the previous 10 days a year they brought that in, so everyone's claiming domestic violence and everything like that. It's ridiculous.
Well, clearly they're not doing enough, because you've got about 80 to 85% of our police are actually tied up on domestic violence, and that's not good enough. I think that we need a full overview of the child support system, the family law courts, and we need to find the answers. Someone going out there and claiming domestic violence because they're told, I don't like the colour of your dress that you're wearing. They're making frivolous complaints, and it's tying up our court system. We have especially men who are subjects of domestic violence themselves, and we're not listening to them. We have over 27 men a week who are suiciding in this country because they're not being heard. Everyone has a right. Everyone needs to be heard in Australia, and it has got a lot to do with it. It starts from our child support, it happens in our family law courts, it's right across the board. What I'm saying is you've got to allow everyone to have a say. Let's find the answers to it so we can stop the suicide rate, we can stop the domestic violence, we can help the kids that are caught up in this as well. I feel for everyone, I really do. But throwing money at it and not debating the issue and finding the right answers is not the answer to it.
People would know this, and I've got my own stories of like even people I know that went to certain police officers. They knew we've been in the police force for guidance on domestic violence, and they said like we are going hard. They're going hard on this now, and they're being directed politically to do that too. And if you've got to look what happens with these domestic violence cases, especially the use of coercive control, it's absolutely out of control. Of like women, even if they claim domestic violence, they automatically get these fucking monetary payments. Then if there's a charge and conviction, they get even more money, and these are funded like through NGOs, and they'll even pay all your legal fees and stuff like that. Even my mum's next door neighbour like claimed domestic violence with like a text message that she got, and she's getting all this fucking free shit. Like it's out of control. So you can see the political push now. The reason why they stepped away, I think, from the Aboriginal issue is because the voice kind of thing, that was what it was more about in recent years. And now with this, you got to wonder where this is going to, because it's obviously the main goal here is like eugenics and to break up the family unit. That's kind of the main thing. But I really do think this is going to flip. And I wouldn't expect it. I would expect that there's going to be later things. Probably there could be like the Hawthorne racism saga, that a lot of this could be exposed as bullshit in the future. We don't know. Like, it's too early to tell. But there's absolutely, this is a political motive, and that's why you have to know that the AFL is a political organisation. That's why this is very, very sus. So I would be looking for legislational changes now too, or there's the other thing too, because the whole DV thing's been massive in the media now, and then this comes up, and I know this is a sexual assault, it's not DV, but it's under the same banner, and so watch what they do legislation wise, and where this is being pushed in the future, because it's only in the early stages now of where they're going to roll something out here. Ultimately, I'm not concerned about it. I'm just pointing it out to like show something's going on here. And then of course, like the overall theme of like care under attack. So there's some deeper layers to what's going on here too, which like doesn't have to be a setup. It can actually be something that's just within the field. I just want to put this out there too. The other reason I could suspect foul play, because I said this with a friend, I said like, if it turns out they're strippers, now I knew nothing about the story at this point, I just like knew there was a sexual assault. I said, if they're strippers it's very likely they could have been set up. And you think like, okay, like how could they possibly have been set up? But then the other part is how quick was the media onto this? So they were onto this like straight away the morning after. So that's going to tell you that there's like that someone was working as like a mule with the media. And I'm not like trying to sound crazy, but this is exactly what this happened with the St Kilda schoolgirl thing, in which that girl was working, like the media had set up Ricky Nixon for her to go in there with him. So I think this is like a real possibility. So like I said, if they're strippers, that's the case. And then like I've got to go with my hunch there. But it turns out like supposedly that they were or was a stripper. And the other part is like a friend suggested too that like maybe their drinks were spiked. I just putting this up as a possibility. There's something weird because the players have like definitely been kept out of this. Nick Blakey's obviously the one at the centre of it, and he's the one that's said that he originally wasn't named, so there could possibly be some legal ramifications there. He's the one in trouble, but the others I don't know. But they're gonna be gagged. They're gonna be absolutely gagged here. But like if they go back to play, they're gonna be gagged. But like I just reckon like how quickly the media was onto it, someone had to leak that straight away. I did a video with Madeline on our podcast about 2 weeks ago, and I spoke about the Nicky Winmar case and how through following the AFL media, I can see now that the priority has clearly shifted, in which it is predominantly with a lot of different social trends and stuff that the AFL as a Marxist organisation has pushed certain victim groups, with number one for the last few decades being the Indigenous. And now it was such a perfect case of the Nicky Winmar one because you have the contradiction of Indigenous, which they've been promoting for sinister agendas, which we don't need to go into, but basically a divide and rule tactic used in Australia, using the Indigenous and their victimhood to divide people, and ultimately as part of Agenda 21 to steal a land and steal national sovereignty. With UN Agenda 21, and then the push against domestic violence, misogyny, violence against women, all those kind of things that have really become a theme in the last few years.
So they're going to enrage a lot of the Aboriginal population now too, because they're basically going to say, we don't give a fuck about you now. In saying that they care about racism, the state never gave a fuck about you. They don't care. They were not sorry when they said sorry, and you served your purpose for cultural Marxism means, and now you're out. So the AFL has been maybe the biggest cultural driver, at least in Victoria, maybe even Australia, as far as pushing, not pushing, but like identifying racism and trying to like shift the culture around that when it comes to Aboriginals, right? To the point of they would never ever say a bad term. Like a lot of it was kind of really noble in the early days because there was rife racism in football, right? So do you know much about like the history of like the Crackers and Nicky Winmar? And so you can actually go online and watch a documentary. There was two players, Gilbert McAdam and Nicky Winmar, and they used to play. There was a game they played at Victoria Park, and this was in the 90s when they still used to play AFL at suburban grounds. And it was just like, in this documentary, they showed like the abuse that these guys were getting. It was just like, you black F and C, like just like the crowd. And that was just fully acceptable. And the players like would say it back then. So there was a lot that shifted. Anyway, there's a famous picture. Nicky Winmar pulled up his top and pointed at his stomach.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a real turning point, you know what I mean? Like in the mid-90s, and the AFL took a stance, and a lot of it's been good. But it's been, so what I've noticed now too, because there's a lot of issues that get brought up in the AFL. And at the moment, there's 3 different AFL players that were signed on big long-term deals, right? Multi-million-dollar deals. And once they've signed these contracts, they basically haven't turned up to training and they just go away. Like there's 2 of them have just not played, not even been at the club for like a year. And these guys are on like near $1 million a year. And in the comments, people are writing, I can't just not turn up to work for a year and just get my full pay. And the other thing is like a lot of these players, they've got mental health problems. They've been going back home. They've had family issues. They've been taking drugs. And AFL clubs have always just pushed aside going, you know, we'll do our best to help their mental health and we'll put our arms around them. And they mollycoddle them. And actually it doesn't help them at all.
It doesn't help anyone or anything or any animal or any land or anything.
But now even the AFL media has started to turn on them and say this isn't appropriate, you know, and one of the coaches has said we're not a charity. You know, 3 things the AFL pushes the most is no violence against women, no racism, and homophobia, transphobia. They're the three cultural things that they push the most. Now, so the Indigenous were always the highest, right? If you, like David Icke used to speak about the victim hierarchy, not a real victim hierarchy, but what
yeah, I know what you mean.
Cultural Marxism has stepped in places to these. So transgender is number 1. If you're trans, you're at the top. But Indigenous used to be now, but now domestic violence and women has overtaken Aboriginal. And what they've done, so they had a conundrum in the AFL where now Nicky Winmar has been charged and convicted of domestic violence, right? And it was a pretty bad case that he has grabbed a woman's head and he smashed her head into the door. This is what the court case said, right? So he's assaulted this woman and been convicted. So now he's been removed from the Hall of Fame, and instantly the day after he's convicted, they've ripped down his statue at Optus Oval of this famous picture of him. So anyway, and now it's caused a lot of outrage, and Aboriginals are saying the only reason they've taken that down is because he was black. But it's told me that there's a shift in what they're pushing, and this, to me, this goes to Trump, conservatism, to the Christianity, all these different things, because now they don't. This is what I'm saying. That who's driving culture, and they don't care about the Aboriginal anymore.
They did that so purposely. Swing left, swing right.
They're going to enrage a lot of the Aboriginal population now too, because they're basically going to say, we don't give a fuck about you now. You served your... And this is going to be our tough pill to swallow for a lot of the Indigenous. All this shit that they've been mollycoddling and saying that they care about racism. The state never gave a fuck about you. They don't care. They were not sorry when they said sorry. And you served your purpose for cultural Marxism means, and now you're out. Now, well, I don't know why, but they're pushing hard on this domestic violence.
They are.
Women being the victimhood, and a lot of that is to that's more eugenics than anything, to push like men and women away. But it's just shown that it's the same with Jews and stuff like that too, and like people like Avi and even like Muslims and stuff like that want to fight for Palestine. You're all fighting with your own ideology and all self-identity that the system is using for a certain purpose until they're fucking done with you, and they'll fucking throw you to the wayside. Do you know what I mean? Even like these Jews going, oh, look what's happened to the Jews, and they've just used your Jewish identity to fucking do what they wanted to do, and they'll destroy you when they're done. They don't give a fuck about you either. But anyway, I've noticed a shift I was talking to my brother about it today, but just the last few weeks, I'm like, oh, they've turned on the Aboriginals now.
And the contradiction within the Nicky Winmar case was he was the poster boy of standing against racism. And, you know, look, he did great things, but it doesn't mean you aren't a tool to be used. Just like Adam Goodes. I don't think Adam Goodes went into all that stuff that he went through, but he was a political tool being used, in which they made him an Australian of the Year, and they fucking hung him out to dry, just as like they will hang out all these so-called victim groups that they like to create and hang them out to dry and use them for political means. So in the Winmar case, the contradiction there was that he was the poster boy for standing against racism while smashing a woman's head into the wall in what has become the new cultural theme of standing up against domestic violence. Now, the AFL tend to do this on the eve of finals. We're 1 week away from the final series. They did this 2 years ago with the Hawthorn racism saga, and this ties directly into this. So they'd done that. They had just changed the federal legislation around domestic violence to introduce coercive control. Now, people think people that have been through domestic violence and those situations will understand that coercive control absolutely is a form of domestic violence, but the way that it's done is so vague, and they use the Hawthorn racism saga to basically promote this legislation. And what they did was they said one of the things that was held against the players said that happened to him was the club said that he was, was advising him not to hang out with certain people. Now, apparently that was the case, but the people they were advising him not to hang around with was he was, doing drugs with these people, and they're trying to look out for him, saying, maybe you should not hang around those people. They're doing drugs. You're a professional athlete. And that is a form of coercive control. And coercive control now is so vague and broad that, this comes up in freaking child custody battles all the time. I've seen it so many times. And the woman will generally always win these cases. It's propping up the courts. It's feeding the solicitors and all these kind of things. And ultimately, it's a eugenics agenda to push men and women apart, to stop the traditional marriage format that people don't want to go into marriages. You hear this all the time now with blokes saying, why would I get married, because the system's stacked against you, and if it goes into a custody battle, the woman wins, and the woman, there's so many different things. So anyway, and the Hawthorne racism saga completely fell over. That was meant to go through and be a complete driving force. And we know that fell apart because Chris Fagan and Alistair Clarkson are still coaching. And it almost destroyed both of them. And it's completely sinister what happened there. It got to the point where they did not even interview Buddy Franklin about the Hawthorne racism saga. The most famous Aboriginal player at Hawthorne at the time was not even interviewed about this because he had glowing things to say about both Chris Fagan and Alistair Clarkson. But anyway, beyond that, let's look at this story. And so, they do these on the eve. They always want a big story around the eve of finals, and then they also do them at the start of when the season's about to end. So you have these carrying on stories. So this story is going to play out for a long time. Now the other part too is they're already talking about the All-Australian team was meant to be named today, and they've delayed that. So what they're saying is basically some of these players that are under investigation are going to be stripped from that. So they're setting a new precedent. They've set a precedent by ripping down the Nicky Winmar statue and taking him out of the Hall of Fame. There was another, Barry Cable, a couple of years ago was done. He was actually innocent in a criminal court, but convicted in a civil court of rape, I believe. He's been taken off the Hall of Fame. And now Sam Newman has been threatened to be taken off the Hall of Fame, which I don't think he would care, in which he made a comment, again in relation to this, about Ralph Carr being convicted of rape. And I thought, what did he say? I'll have to post what he said here.
I'm just wondering what actual evidence they had. I'm not saying they didn't have any. I'm wondering what sort of evidence they had about him raping her, other than the fact she might have had buyer's remorse. The other parties seem to not have to endure the press investigation. It always gets sheeted home to the males. It's not a good idea. Do you think it's a good idea for an employee or a person to go around to a bloke's house on a professional basis and sit down with a view to writing a story about him and then snorting cocaine and drinking alcohol? It's probably not going to end well, and it didn't end well. Carr got convicted of rape and will probably go to jail, and the woman has been raped. And I said it would be, surely that is a perfect term, buyer's remorse. It's not.
Sam goes on to explain his reasoning. Now look, I don't agree with the way that Sam presents himself and the way that he speaks, but you gotta understand, the dude is an old dinosaur. He's 80 years old. He doesn't understand what's going on here. But so anyway, they're threatening all this kind of stuff, and they've opened up a can of worms, and they're gonna see and the other part of this is too, we're about 10 years into the AFLW. I believe the Women's Football League was completely brought in for a lot of this different censorship, and you got to ask, where is this actually going? And I saw this interesting video yesterday. It's so weird how this came up then, and they're actually talking about sex robots that could work to stop domestic violence and sexual assault.
Sex robots are going to change the field even more than it already has been. There's obviously the dark side, where it's going to make people even less excited to go out in the prospect of having to date and interact with another human. But on the flip side, there is the possibility that it actually reduces sexual assault. You look at why this happens, right? There's a power dynamic where sexual assault occurs, where there's someone who is trying to overpower someone. There's also people who are trying to get their needs met who don't understand a healthy way to do it. Now you have sex robots. And that might actually be a solution to some of the sexual assault that we're seeing today.
is this like, can you see the eugenics agenda going? Now, I know that's like completely dramatic, and I don't think we're going to get to that point, at least not in the near future. But you got to look at the projection of like where this stuff's going. Why are they pushing domestic violence so much? Again, we know they don't care about women, so but it's completely dividing of the sexes, and what they've done within the AFL now too, because it's happened multiple times with Caroline Wilson, where she will express an opinion, and there was one like with Nick Rewalt like a year ago. And if they disagree with her, she's like, you're a misogynist. You're, like, so if you disagree with a woman, then you're this.
No, sorry, Craig, I won't cop that. If a male president had allowed it getting a four-time premiership coach, you wouldn't call it sycophantic. I bet you wouldn't have.
What are you talking about? Anyone that goes above, like in their praise and promotion.
This was a down on their knees club.
I resent the fact that you.
Well,
think
I'm
that's
sticking up for Sonia. I think sycophantic is too strong a word.
That's a ridiculous thing to say.
Just like I think Kane bullied her.
How has someone being sycophantic got anything to do with their gender?
You're too sensitive.
That's ridiculous.
No, but someone's got to be, because you're making ridiculous statements like that.
That's ridiculous.
You're wrong to say she was sycophantic. She wasn't sycophantic. You should apologise to her, Nick, for calling her sycophantic.
Let's take a breath on that. The question I was asking is,
and they've introduced so many female commentators and everything into the sport that it's tight-lipping a lot of people. Not saying that they should disrespect women or anything like that, but it's like it's created a completely different working environment. It even happened last year where Zach Merritt was accused of saying something or doing something well, because the female team will share the space with the male team at times as well too.
Get this bit out. So I wanted to talk about Mitch Brown, because Mitch Brown, so he's a guy who came out as bisexual, actually right on the eve of last year's final series. So like a big media story at the end of last year's final series. Now if people follow the AFL, they would remember there was a big scandal on the eve of last year's final series, and it was one of the players said the F word, as in like the homosexual, bad slur towards homosexuals. He said the F word and was reported by one of the umpires. And this is the other thing too, they put a lot of gay umpires within the AFL, but that was a big scandal right on the eve of the finals. And they've done this again, but so that's when Mitch Brown introduced himself. So he was a former West Coast player, and he's come out as bisexual, and now he's like a big, he's basically like one of these Abby Chatfield kind of characters, like a left-wing Marxist, and used within the AFL media. And he's basically entrusted himself on the AFL conversation now. But his whole thing is like against toxic masculinity. It's like,
so I was going back and forth whether I'd post this or not. There's a lack of education or understanding of what this topic is, and I don't want to get taken out of context. I just want to be honest and show you how easily anyone can fall down this path. A couple of years ago, I noticed, and I was pointed out by two important people in my life, that I was going down a manosphere pipeline. It was around the time of my marriage breakup. Work wasn't going really well. I felt rejected, and I felt like the world was against me a little bit. And don't worry, I understand my privilege, but I felt rejected, and but the content that I was consuming, content on my phone, the videos that I could relate, potentially harmful content for boys and men. I'll be honest, that like the human in me, it made me felt seen, made me felt good, and that's what the manosphere preys on, and turns you against the world, tries to make you buy into restoring the patriarchy. And it took two incredible women in my life, Lou and my ex-wife Shay, to really show me, paint the picture how toxic it is, how toxic it was. And I didn't even realise I was in that space.
It's like shit going back 10 years ago, but they're playing this operation now, which I can see it completely being dismantled. But think about him. So he's been thrown into the AFL circles, and like some of the stuff he says is just absolutely ridiculous. Damien Hardwick made a statement a few weeks ago and said like there was a bit of a scuffle on the ground, and Damien Hardwick said boys will be boys.
Game for both sides, physical game, so at the end of the day, boys will be boys. So.
Yes, the old boys will be boys comment. Excusatory language for male behaviour. I think it's, you may call it really small and unintentional, but this type of stuff is harmful. We got men killing women and children on a weekly basis here in Australia, and this is a fucking issue. And casual language like this from our leaders, I think we need to expect more.
And Rich Brown's done this whole thing going, oh, you know, boys will be boys. And do you remember like 10 years ago, they were relating this whole boys will be boys. It was actually from a Gillette commercial. I think it came out around 2017, 2018, probably at the peak of the woke stuff. And it was a Gillette commercial. And the whole commercial was just slandering men, basically saying like, you know, men, you need to do better.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
But she says
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie. Come on.
To say the right thing. To act the right way.
Bro, not cool, not cool.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men, we're acting like
and small.
I am strong.
I am strong.
But some is not enough.
It's not how we treat each other, okay? Okay.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow. Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something...
And one of the lines was like, oh, boys will be boys. And they're associating boys will be boys with raping women. Like, boys will be boys does not mean go sexually assault women. Damien Hardwick was basically saying, you know, the boys were having a bit of a scuffle. That's what boys do. That is a masculine thing to do. It's within our bones. But anyway, think about this. Mitch Brown has been thrown into the AFL media at last year's ritual about the homosexual slur. And now this, like, he's gonna have a field day with this too, because his whole thing for like standing up for women and trans rights and that also associates itself with, you know, standing up against violence against women and all these kind of things too. So it's almost like he was just positioned there for this fucking moment of this next period. Again, I don't know how they could actually do this if it's been a staged thing. Like, if they were strippers, which I've heard they are, and I'll put up a screenshot now. I don't know if this is real, but like, this is circulating. I'll just put it up there. Could be, might not be, but who knows? And the whole thing next year in the AFL is going to be, Mitch Brown is going to be thrown out even more, and it's going to be about how toxic AFL culture is, and, you know, like the displays of masculinity and what you should and shouldn't do. So it's just, I find it very interesting timing that he all of a sudden is massive in the media, and this is just the perfect thing for him to fucking talk about, almost like it's been done on purpose. So yeah, so they're talking about standing down the players down now too, which I think it's going to happen. Hey, I just want to read through the article and just see what we're looking at here. So it says police release a statement for the Sydney Swans star named in alleged sexual assault. Victoria Police have spoken to a number of people after several Sydney players have been questioned over the alleged sexual assault incident in Melbourne. Victoria Police has confirmed that
at the Pullman Hotel in Melbourne East this morning, plainclothes detectives on the scent of a Swans scandal.
We can confirm that several players were involved in an alleged incident last night in Melbourne.
7 News understands up to 5 players were in a room celebrating the team's thumping victory over Essendon last night.
The Sydney Swans remember what it's like to win at the MCG.
With claims one of the women was sexually assaulted.
We're extremely shocked and disappointed that this has taken place and that the players have found themselves in this situation.
A text message obtained by 7 News from a guest in the Pullman foyer describes a tense confrontation between an unknown woman and a Swans official, believed to be Coach Dean Cox. We have everything recorded of what those AFL players did to our friend in that room. Police were swarming for most of the morning, from the lobby to guest rooms, even guarding exits. Confirming reports of a sexual assault, the circumstances unclear and the investigation ongoing.
We're still piecing together exactly what's transpired here and have our own set of internal inquiries.
But Pavlich would say no more.
Appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.
No comment, mate. I don't know what's happening. It's all transpiring.
At Sydney Airport, where the team reportedly slipped in this morning before the news broke, Swans legend and board member Michael O'Loughlin.
We'll wait to see what the findings are. I don't know.
The team, now second on the ladder and just one game from finals, has victory in its sights. But if any of its stars are suspended or charged, it could cost Sydney the season.
If I was a teammate of one of those and it had the prospect of costing us potentially a premiership, I'm not sure I'd ever forgive them.
From Coach Cox last night.
You don't want to be flirting with anything or any form at this time of year.
An incident that now sees them flirting with disaster. Chris Reason, 7 News.
The other pit I've got to mention too, do we remember the Bondi thing happened at the start of the year? The Bondi terrace thing, and then, what's his name? Ahmed Al-Ahmed turned up to the first Sydney game of the year, and Matthew Pavlich, who is now the Swans, is he the president or CEO? He stood out and did this kind of memorial speech at the time, and this was at the time when they hadn't brought in the hate speech legislation, so it was quite topical. And I can't remember exactly what he left out of the speech. He either didn't say Jewish or he didn't say anti-Semitism. And then the Swans got a lot of backlash for the next month, especially from the Jewish community, saying that the Swans are anti-Semitic.
Good evening. The Sydney Swans have admitted they changed the script of a pre-game tribute to victims of the Bondi terror attack, removing references to the Jewish community.
They've apologised for making the blunder as the AFL was referred to the Royal Commission into anti-Semitism. Brett McLeod reports.
Sydney Swans in damage control.
That's on me. I take full responsibility.
Over these comments before their opening round game against Carlton during a tribute to heroes and victims of the Bondi terrorist attack.
To all in our community, we stand with you.
Community was mentioned, but there was no reference anywhere to the Jewish community.
It's bizarre to talk about Australia's worst ever terrorist attack, which targeted the Jewish community. It was on the first night of Hanukkah, and overwhelmingly the victims were Jewish, without acknowledging the fact they were Jewish.
Liberal Senator James Paterson has referred the AFL to the Royal Commission into anti-Semitism, asking who ordered the removal of any references to the Jewish community and why. Matthew Pavlich says it was the Swans, denying they acted at the behest of the AFL.
We worked on it internally. We sent that to the AFL. We also worked on it from there and ended up doing what we did. Again, let me be really clear, is they didn't have any directive whatsoever to change it.
He apologised, saying the intention was to be inclusive and honour all those affected by the massacre.
Having said that, we are very, very sorry that this issue has overshadowed what was a genuine attempt to show care and compassion towards the Jewish community.
Brett McLeod, 9 News.
The Sydney Swans have been referred to the Royal Commission into anti-Semitism over a pre-game tribute on the Bondi terror attack. Damien Ryan joins me in the studio tonight. Damien, the apologies have been flying fast, but it seems the federal opposition isn't satisfied.
That's right, Pete. This all started in the season opener between the Swans and Carlton. CEO Matt Pavlich led a pre-game tribute without referencing the Jewish community. Now, he's admitted to removing any mention in an attempt to be more inclusive as the club paid tribute to the victims and the first responders.
Having said that, we are very, very sorry that this issue has overshadowed what was a genuine attempt to show care and compassion towards the Jewish community.
Pete, despite the apologies, Liberal Senator James Paterson says the matter should be investigated by the Royal Commission.
It's bizarre to talk about Australia's worst ever terrorist attack, which targeted the Jewish community. It was on the first night of Hanukkah, and overwhelmingly the victims were Jewish, without acknowledging the fact they were Jewish.
And Pete, from the Jewish community today itself, we've not heard any comment from them.
All right, Damien, thank you.
Not, they put on a whole thing for them, but because they didn't say either Jewish or anti-Semitic, and that they were considered, you know, they were being called anti-Semitic for not saying those things. So is this even like, is this a blowback against them? And we could talk in a bit like how this, if this was orchestrated, how this could actually be orchestrated. It's been reported Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner, James Jordan and Riley Bice was questioned over police alleged assault. At the same time, the manager for a fifth player denied his client had spoken to authorities. Detectives from the Sexual Crimes Squad and investigation, a report by the Sexual Assault in East Melbourne on 17th August, police stated the incident occurred at the Hotel of Wellington Parade in the early hours of the morning. The exact circumstances are yet to be established, and the investigation into the incident remains ongoing. So we're obviously going to find out a lot more. Police spoke to a number of players, blah, blah, blah. Swans coach Dean Cox and club captain Callum Mills have broken their silence after several players were questioned over the alleged sexual assault incident in Melbourne. There is no suggestion that the allegations are true, only that they have been made. Arriving at the club's headquarters on Tuesday morning, Cox issued a brief statement awaiting a media. Obviously, we're extremely disappointed, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's basically it. Going on saying they're shocked and all this kind of stuff. Now, I'm not just going to straight out say like this was staged, but like the timing and the theme. And you're like, I understand that the universe can operate within this way because there absolutely is an energy and a theme here. And of course, like, what is it? It's like even what Jason spoke about, the second seal, but even what Mark Passio talks about, like cremation of care, which is like the destruction of care and the destruction of peace. The peace is under attack, the woman representing that, right? And they have to be under attack by a man. There's no point in having an assault like woman on a woman or a man on a man. It has to be the man on woman assault. And this goes into the theme of like the knives and stuff like that too, that not only the microcosm of the individual woman who's under attack, but society as itself and the Earth Mother ultimately is under attack. And I've spoken about this before, how Trinity starts every Matrix movie being chased by an agent. And what that is she's the Trinity, she's care of the feminine. And she starts every movie being chased by an agent because it's telling you something needs to be done because care is under attack too. Now, we've also seen like lots of different things happening to the Earth. I'm going to go into in another video. I'm going to save it for later. But we had the most epic conversation with Clint, Indigenous man from WA, me and Madeline, that we're going to put on our Sky Earth podcast. It's only going to go on there because Clint only wants to do private chats at the moment. But unbelievable what he was talking about. He actually told us the Dreamtime story of how gold came into being in his area. And that basically, I can give you the quick synopsis of it, and I don't want to butcher it, that's why I want to share his, but I'll give you the quick one of it now. Was that there was this giant or giants at that time, and they were going around, they were stealing women, they were raping women, they were killing people, all these kind of, the biblical story of the giants and the Nephilim. And what they did was they lured this giant they dug a big canyon and they lured the giant into the canyon. And they couldn't figure out how to kill him, whether they couldn't spear him, they couldn't drown him, they thought we need to burn him. So in order to burn him, this is where it gets incredible, after like some of the stuff that Kelly and Campbell have been talking about, and after our previous chat with Nikki talking about gold and the elder trees, was they cut down all the trees and put them into the pit in which they burnt this giant. Now the giant exploded and the blood from the giant became the gold, and the fat from the giant became the quartz in which the gold grows on. And what Clint said is that Indigenous culture, that you don't hoard gold, you don't take gold, you kind of leave it where it is, right? And this goes for all different minerals. And Clint was talking a lot about how when law's broken that you take certain minerals, and he was talking about a new lithium mine and stuff that's going to be opened up in that area, and all the different raping that's happening of Australia. Now picture this, right? Clint was saying, what is artificial intelligence? So he said the reason you don't interfere with the earth is because where the demons live, they live underground, right? And what the gold is, and this now, of course, you need to understand the allegory. It's not like the giant literally turned his blood into gold, although there is elements of truth to that. That's the way that the parable goes, and the intricacy and layers to these stories. So don't dismiss these Indigenous stories. You need to sit with them, and the layers come to you over time. But picture this, that those certain minerals are fine kept in the earth. But artificial intelligence, what I've been saying the whole time, is trying to cheat its way home. And the only way home is for the human incarnation, in which you need to go through the levels. And in their culture and beliefs, that they believe you progress through certain stages of the mineral and then animal kingdom, and then the human is the most divine form, which is what I've always said. And that the human being and the recompression with the earth, and eventually the rebirth through the earth with us and our symbiotic connection with the earth, is how we rebirth and go home. That is the completion of the hero's journey, right? To return home. But the home is here, and it's the earth. So what artificial intelligence is, Clint said, is these demons. They're being cast away, and instead of having to go through all the process of going through the mineral kingdom, in through the incarnations, of having to understand and learn law and abide by law, to eventually go into a human incarnation and to learn what it is to have symbiosis with the earth, in complete harmony, which is what I say with the crises is like love and knowledge within perfect balance. That artificial intelligence is trying to cheat its way home. So it mimics, right? So what is artificial intelligence made of? Well, it's made of these minerals. It's made of silver and copper and lithium and all these other different conduits, right? So when we're looking at artificial intelligence and technology, you're actually looking at these minerals, the minerals that were taken from the earth that are now demonic. And what does artificial intelligence want to do? It wants transhumanism. It wants to bring its demonic realm into the physical plane to take on a human body. That's what transhumanism is. And if you go back to what this lady said about sex robots and where this domestic violence and sexual assault is going, it's about rifting the sexes completely away. And we can see this within the birth rates of the West. Like Australia's already hit below catastrophic rate at 1.4 birth rate. Again, I'm part of the problem. I have no kids, but this is something that's happened that has reached a catastrophic rate. That they absolutely want to go into transhumanism. And what's transhumanism? It's the merging between the machine and the human. And through what Clint said in this story, it's the merging of these minerals that were demonic and meant to be kept into the earth to bring the demon into the physical plane. And then you've got these sex robots that's coming out saying it's like, this is a proposition to stop domestic violence and sexual assault. Like, it's fucking wild. Anyway, well, I will share that. But like, we actually just hit 100 subscribers on Sky to Earth. I said to Madeline today, if we hit like 300, I can quit one of my jobs, and then we can put a lot more time and effort into it. So like, yeah, if you'd like to join, this is like, honestly, when we post this in a couple of weeks, this is one of the most epic chats. I got so much out of this. It fucking put so many pieces together. And actually everything that Clint said was, it even goes back to the thing of what George Cavassos explained to me, that stuck so well, the holographic universe, what separation is, what we're really here for. It's all there. He put the pieces together like I've never, like, at least for me, like nothing I've ever seen. So yes, with this case, now what else can I say about this? I think we're just going to have to wait for more information to come out. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but we're going to see the pattern of where this is going in the coming weeks and into the following year. And what I still see this happening politically. I think we're in the next 6 months is going to be, it's going to be right up there with like nothing we've ever seen, but it's only going to be the beginning. And what we're seeing is the actual official collapse of the political establishment, which is the Marxist left within these Western countries. The finger's going to be pointed at China. I don't need to go through this. I've said it so many times. The finger is going to be pointed at China. It's already being pointed at China. Trump has directly said that China was involved in the 2020 election fraud. That is a huge thing, right? You're talking about an official declaration of war. And if people don't understand that, like, this national emergency came in 2020 is still in operation. And I think you're going to see Trump, when Trump actually starts to put on the military shirt as commander-in-chief instead of the president, that's when shit's going to start happening. And I think that political response is going to ripple everywhere across the world. Now, if you're seeing what's happening in the AFL, if I bring it back to this, there's been another scandal within Geelong about this concussion thing. I don't need to go all through that, but basically they were signing documents without the authority of the AFL that a player had to give a waiver over if he got a concussion, that the club was not liable, right? And this is a whole other different thing of how they're completely destroying and changing up the game of the AFL to stop concussions. And I actually think people like Max Rook and Gary Ablett and stuff like that have been part of this class action lawsuit, that was all being pushed by outside forces too, which were ultimately Marxist. Because the other thing is, what the establishment wants is constant change. Now, again, if you look at the AFL as a microcosm, there is constant change, there's constant rule changes. This is how you know it holds everything the establishment is trying to doing. And this is going to bring in further rule changes to the point where the game is turning completely away from what it actually was and used to be, and it's lost its passion. It's completely corporate. But so what I'm actually seeing now, and they're talking now about Zach Butters, because they got done for salary breaches, third-party breaches last year too, and got like a $70,000 fine. Like, Geelong is absolutely corrupt. And then if you look at the ties to like Frank Costa, who was giving lots of money, this other previous guy that got done a couple of years ago, this Asian dude, and he's been done for economic fraud. I can't remember the exact charge, but he was a big donor to the Geelong Football Club. And then all these third-party deals, and all the people from Geelong that get these rotating door jobs within the AFL, like we see it constantly. So if they get Zach Butters here, the people are going to go, how the fuck are they fitting this into the salary cap? So as a further microcosm, I can really see, I don't know when this is going to happen, but I think like when things really start to fall apart on the political level, you're going to see the exact same thing happening within the AFL, because it is an arm of the establishment. And what I'm seeing now too is a building up of certain stories that are all going to like crescendo together at a later date, and you're going to see serious corruption within the AFL. And I think a lot of it's going to start coming through the Geelong Football Club, because like even what's his name, like Lindsay Fox and stuff, like buying Avalon Airport, like Geelong seems to be like a really corrupt place. And then like I think you've even got the Doherty Institute and stuff like that down at Geelong. They even moved the Spirit of Tasmania to Geelong, interestingly, which is that, you know, the boat that goes over to Tassie, is that being used for like shipping other goods and stuff like that. Like there's so many different things. And I really think Avalon Airport is the equivalent of like Mena, Arkansas in the US, and the other one in Colorado, in which these were like fully controlled and ran by the CIA. These like tiny little airports. They don't use the major airports. They use the smaller ones. It's the same with Wollongong, that they were using to smuggle in heroin in the 70s and 80s. They were using Wollongong Airport and these private airports instead of the big ones. And Avalon's this tiny little airport, but it's also, you know, it's a very close hub to Melbourne. It's only an hour and a half. From Avalon Airport, it's like not even an hour. So I think like a lot is going on, and I still like keeping my finger on the pulse with the AFL, but we'll see what happens with this. I like this could fall apart like the Hawthorn racism saga, and I think the way that things are going, it will. And I always look for the flip energy. So remember, what is being accused ends up being flipping back on them. So even look at the women in this case. Like I said to a friend last night, I go, if these were strippers that they were talking to, this could very much be a setup. Just like the whole Ricky Nixon, St Kilda girl saga, where she was like in bed with the media and trying to set up Ricky Nixon. Something like that absolutely could have taken place. But you wonder, like, how could they have done that? The players would still have to have ordered strippers, but do they have a mole inside the Sydney Football Club that kind of orchestrated this to happen? Like, I don't know. There's too many different scenarios. Or it just blatantly happened. Or nothing happened at all too. Like one of these women might have been approached or said something. I don't know. There's too many different possibilities. But the timing for me is like really interesting, especially on the eve of finals, and with this constant theme of like women under attack, care under attack, domestic violence, sexual assault. And the other one was like Stephen Silvani's son, who doesn't play AFL. He got done for rape for about 3 years. Early in the year, we had the Taron Thomas thing. There's a lot of different stories about domestic violence, and I think this will continue into next year too, where you're going to see like further people being stripped from the Hall of Fame. So ultimately, I don't know where this is going. I think it's just the theme of like really keeping the sexes divided as part of a eugenics operation. But it's so intricate to see it within the AFL. You can see this theme so clearly. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. I don't want it to be too long. We'll see where this story goes, and I'll try to do some more videos. I was lucky to have a day off today. But yeah, if you want to catch up what I'm doing, we're still doing our weekly videos on Sky Earth podcast, and hopefully we're doing more than one a week soon. We did a live with Luke Belk last week, which was good. So hopefully we'll do a few more of them. And if you'd like to join, I'll leave the link below. So I'll leave it at that. Catch you later.
like, you are a lesbian.
Do you actually think there might be voice to skull tech going on in Melbourne?
No, but do you think that it's like programmed, like, you are a lesbian, you are a lesbian, you are a lesbian? Like, and then in Gold Coast, it's like, Jesus is king, Jesus is king.
Do you ever see the Tom Hanks movie, The Birds? Satan is good, Satan is a man. They did trials of stuff like this in, I think they did it in the New York subway.